Julie Clark with Seattle Investors Club coming at you with the tip of the day. Today's tip is going to cover 20 line items that you should have in your single family deal analyzer. Ready? Let's kick it off. Number one, of course, is your ARV, your exit value. We're not going to go into a bunch of details on how to calculate everything. We're just going to roll down the list and call them out here. Number two is rehab costs. Of course, you need to know your rehab costs if you're doing any type of remodel or cleanup. Number three is, of course, the purchase price, whatever you're going to be paying for that property. Number four, I'm checking my notes here, is your lender points, whether you're using hard money or private money. Maybe you have points, maybe you don't, but don't forget about calculating those lender points into your deal. Number five, lender admin fees. You might have, if you use a hard money lender, for example, you might have some admin fees that they charge on a flat fee basis on every deal. If you're in Seattle Investors Club, you might get a discount with our hard money lender. Number six, insurance. You have to have insurance while you own the property, and whether you pay for that all for 6 months at a time or month by month, you'll have to figure out on your own, but don't forget that important line item in your deal analyzer. Number seven is your purchase closing costs. Have you offered to pay the seller's transfer tax or excise tax? In Washington State, we call it excise tax. In other states, they might call it transfer tax. So if you're not in Seattle, how much does the seller have to pay when they sell a property to the state? That is called transfer tax, and you're going to probably have to pay that. If you've offered to cover that for the seller, you might not have to if they're paying their own. There's also going to be closing costs on the purchase. You will probably be paying either those for yourself or for both you and the seller. So make sure those are fully calculated into your purchase of the property. Number eight, inspection fees. Do you have to pay an inspector, or do you want to pay an inspector or maybe an appraiser to come out and do a home inspection or whatever kind of inspection you feel the need to get during your due diligence before you buy the property? Don't forget to count that. Number nine, in Washington State here, we have a lot of properties that are on septic in certain parts of, like, South King County and maybe parts of Tacoma we have, or maybe up in Snohomish County. A lot of the homes are on septic systems instead of public sewer. And as part of the transfer on that property, you're going to make sure it needs to be pumped, inspected, and then there's some reporting that needs to be reported to the public health department. So you want to make sure you have those three costs related to septic in your number. Maybe you can get the seller to pay for that, maybe you can't. Just something to think about. Number 10, we also here in at least Washington State, we have a lot of properties in the Seattle area might have old oil tanks or oil furnaces that might still be in the ground somewhere out in the yard. Does it have to be a big deal? No, it doesn't have to be a big deal. Properties with either abandoned or unused oil tanks get sold all the time. There's a method of decommissioning those tanks, and it's maybe a cost of, let's say, around $1,000 for something like that on a typical one with no issues. And you want to make sure that you have checked that box off and included that cost in your deal analyzer. If you have a property that used to have an oil tank, maybe they've already converted to gas, you need to ask the seller, do you have the decommissioning paperwork? And if they don't, you want to make sure that you, for the back end when you're going to sell it, that you have that paperwork. So little side tip there. Oil tank decommissioning costs. Number 11, of course, property taxes, your prorated portion while you own the property during your holding period. Number 12, wholesale fees, right? Those guys, we love wholesalers. We love you all wholesalers out there. Hey, we want to get you paid, and we're going to make sure we include you guys in our line items on our deal analyzer. Number 13, of course, your utility costs during your hold period. Number 14, maybe your lender has rehab draw fees of $150 per draw. Maybe they don't, but maybe they do. You need to sort that out and add that into your deal analyzer, whatever the case may be. Then we're going now to the back end when you're getting ready to sell the property again. Of course, you need to calculate commissions for all us brokers. Hello, how do you do? Transfer tax, excise tax on the back end. In Washington State, that's 1.78% of the sales price, of the gross sales price that you'll need to calculate into your back end selling costs. Of course, your title and escrow fees, Me, myself, I use about 0.5% just to throw it on there for those costs. That's 1/2 of 1%. That's just what I use. It's not a perfect number. If you want to get perfect about it, go ahead and get perfect about it. Number 19. I guess title and escrow fees are 17 and 18, guys. Sorry. Number 19 is staging costs. I highly recommend that if you are selling a property today that you consider staging it. It can elevate the price of the house in a big way, especially if you've flipped it. I think we all know we probably want to stage those homes. Don't forget to include that cost in your deal analyzer. And number 20, attorney's fees. You might use an attorney for your docs, or you might have an attorney that you've used for some reason during the process. Especially if it's a JV or a deal structure that's more complicated. Don't be afraid of doing those deals. Just get some legal advice and get those documents drafted by your attorney. So that's it. That's 20 line items that you should have in your deal analyzer, plus all the other ones that you guys can dream up and think of. Other than that, go get those deals and have a great day.